Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I'm your host, Lake, and I am joined by my co-host, Christy. Christy, how are you today?
I'm fine, Lake. It was a day, but I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I had a productive day as well. Lots of editing done today, which was good and much needed.
Yeah, thank you for that.
But
what are you editing for fun for your show, for Mouse Chat?
I did the Princess Half video today.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and then I really need to finish my Alani vlog, which I still have not finished.
I feel like we've talked about that a while.
Yeah, I just have not had the motivation to sit down and make that one happen.
Well, I appreciate you editing this podcast. It's go live for people.
Yeah, we have 2 exciting episodes coming out this week, though this episode will be out way after that anyways. Speaking of beautiful islands, though, we do have quite the episode to discuss.
I'm so excited.
Me too.
Is this trip on your bucket list?
I would love to do the Galapagos, especially being like biology major and all of that. Yes, it has always piqued my interest. Spoilers, but I definitely don't have any, it's not something I'm actively looking at by any means.
Got it.
I guess we should get into it and welcome our guest. We'd like to welcome Lindsey Henry to the show. Lindsey, how are you today?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, we are super excited to get into this. I mean, you get kind of Disney cruising, you get ABD, you get all of the fun things involved in this trip. Why don't you go ahead and start by telling us a little bit about your Disney cruising background, and then what made you interested in this adventure?
Awesome. Well, I have to say, just like many people, I've loved Disney since I was a kid. I'm pretty sure my parents brought me when I was like a baby. I don't even remember it. We went over and over again growing up. So I've always had a love for Disney, run Disney, traveling to Disney. Disney was one of the first solo trips I ever went on. So I kind of have that love, going alone as well. And then I kind of got into Disney Cruise Line last year, fell in love and kept going. I had booked, one thing, and then I'm like, well, why don't I just go for it and go for ABD too? We had done a lot of research on that. And in my background, I was a TV news reporter for about a decade, then went into travel blogging. And then now I'm a travel blogger and travel agent for Fairy Tale Journeys. So I kind of do a little bit of it all. I love traveling, like all of us, right? I love cruising. I don't just cruise Disney. I also do Norwegian and other companies, Atlas Ocean Voyages, things like that. But Disney is obviously a top favorite.
Love it. Well, what drew you towards this Adventures by Disney specifically?
So my husband and I like doing out there trips. We've been to Antarctica, we've been to Africa, been to every continent. I love traveling. I also love birds. I love wildlife. And I also love geology and plants and things like that. And so it kind of went hand in hand with all of that. My husband really pushed for the Galapagos. I had been wanting to go for a while, but he had been wanting to go for forever. He's a scuba diver. And so it kind of was top on his list primarily. I have a whole bunch of places I want to go to, but it was definitely on there too. And then when we went to Antarctica, everybody that went to Antarctica was like, have you done the Galapagos? It was like, oh, I had to go there first basically to get to Antarctica. And we kind of did it opposite. We went to Antarctica first. And so all of our Galapagos friends are like, you have to go. Why have you not been there yet? I'm like, I know. We just need to make it happen, right? So anyway, when I had been researching companies, I was looking at a whole bunch of different ones. And the top 2 in my mind were Nat Geo and ABD, which of course are both owned by Disney. So you're going to get a top-notch experience. Why did we go with Nat Geo over ABD? It was just came down to personal preference. I was like, well, I've never done Adventures by Disney and I hear it's incredible. Nat Geo does a whole bunch more different things, and I will be going on a Nat Geo trip at some point one day. I also looked at other trips and compared Nat Geo. I could have gone with them to Antarctica, but I went with a different company. So I just kind of do a lot of research, look at blogs, look at reviews, things like that. And then I kind of found, this one. I thought, I really like how the itinerary is. I like what the ship looks like. It looks like they go to a whole bunch of different places. So why not go with ABD? So basically, the second it opened, the day it opened for reservations, we booked it that day, which was great because you got a $500 off credit per person. So, hey, $1,000 off the cruise, I'm going to take it. And then we had so much time to pay it off before we went. And here we are. So, yeah, just got off the ship a few days ago. Yep. Flew home yesterday. Still tired.
I can imagine. So I have a couple of, just from your beginning story or how you got their story. Did you do Atlas for Antarctica?
I did Atlas Ocean Voyages, and it was a 10 out of 10 experience. I will speak nothing but good things about Atlas Ocean Voyages. I've done a lot of Antarctica research. I would say out of all the companies, that's my top favorite. It's the same price as everybody else, and it's luxury, which is so cool. Small ship too, and really nice. You're not just sleeping in a bunk bed. You're sleeping in a really nice cruise ship room. It's cool.
And then what about celebrity? Did you look at celebrities Galapagos trip, or did you just decide?
I looked at everybody that I could, but my thoughts on it were with certain kind of locations, big companies versus smaller companies, right? He is by no means small, but the trips are small and more intimate, right? So I also know that Royal Caribbean works with a smaller company that goes there. They own a smaller ship that goes there. But I was thinking, no, I want a smaller kind of setting. That's kind of where my thoughts were on that. Because I know that you're going to get more like one-on-one experience with the guides, the naturalists. So yeah, my thoughts were kind of smaller, I guess you could say. I wanted to go in a small setting to where it was just us on a Zodiac, where it wasn't like a big production of like 1,000 people. Plus, they only allow so many people in certain places to get off. When it comes to certain locations like Antarctica or the Galapagos, I would definitely go with one of those kind of companies that give you a more intimate feel, because you don't want to be fighting with like, what if you don't get the excursion? If it's a different company and they don't guarantee that landing that day. So that was kind of my thought process on that.
What preparation did you do before the cruise? Like what did ABD, were there excursions you picked or things like that?
Yeah. So Adventures by Disney makes it super easy. They basically, just like Antarctica, similar things, they do everything for you. So you don't have to worry about anything, and everything is included that you're going to be experiencing, which I love. You don't have to worry about anything. So basically it's captain's choice on landings and location kind of thing. They have an itinerary to stick with, but it all is dependent on weather too. How choppy the water is for different locations, like if there's storms out, things like that, like if the boat is really rocking and you can't physically get off that day. So they kind of held your hand and just assured you that they're going to take care of you. And here's the itinerary, but all depending on weather. So, but anyway, they do send you, the itinerary, the rough draft or whatever, and it is on the website as well. But, again, are you getting off that day or not? We were lucky. We were able to do pretty much everything we wanted to do, or everything, I should say. But yeah, beforehand, how they contact you. This is my first Adventures by Disney vacation. So you don't hear anything for a long time, and then you get a package in the mail, and it's so exciting. Yeah, I got a backpack and some lanyards and some luggage tags. And the backpack actually came in a lot of handy on the trip. It's a waterproof bag, so I could take it on and off. And we had wet landings with the Zodiac, which means we had dry landings and wet landings. So you're getting off in the water and walking in the water to the beach. So having a waterproof bag was essential. So I love that they send you that. And I hear from other travelers that they give you different gifts for different trips that suit that. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, they have the itinerary. You kind of have a gist of what you're going to do, but you really don't know until actually the night before each night. So sometime around dinner, either before, pretty much before, they sit you down in this atrium and they talk to you about what you're going to need that next day and what you need to bring with you. Like they're going to tell you, is it a wet landing or not? So you know to wear what kind of shoes. Like you're not going to wear hiking boots and hiking socks on a wet landing. They're going to tell you, do you need your snorkel equipment? That kind of thing. So they really make you feel prepared the entire time.
Well, let's get into it then. Your trip actually starts by getting to Ecuador. How was that experience?
That was great. So how it works is you have to get yourself to Quito, Ecuador. And then from there, everything is taken care of. And they also had the option where you could buy. So basically how the itinerary has it is you fly into Quito, Ecuador, and they include one night at the Wyndham at the Quito airport. Or you can pay for an additional night at the Wyndham Quito airport through Adventures by Disney, which is what we did. And then we Ubered into Quito that day. It's about a 45-minute drive, but it is beautiful, very cool. There's a neo-Gothic church, there's a pretty town, lots of museums, art, things like that, very lively. So we actually had 2 pre-nights. So we flew from Houston, where we live, straight to Quito, which is a 5 to 6 hour flight. We spent the night, then we went out and explored Quito that day. Then we got back to the hotel, and what Adventures by Disney has is a check-in desk. So you check in, you get your visa for the Galapagos there, you sign it. has your name and everything printed on it already. Then they give you a little booklet with your tags for the next plane ride that you'll be taking in the morning with them. Then you also get your very first, which I was so excited about this, I did not know, pin of the day. Every day you get a new pin that's exclusive to Adventures by Disney and that specific vacation. So that was so cool. And they don't teach you that. That was a really cool thing that I did not know about. So I geeked out over the pins. But yeah, that was the day that we got there. And then the next morning we flew out and went to Baltra Island.
Did you have to do anything for your visa ahead of time, or does Disney take care of that?
On this specific trip, they take care of it. So to go to Ecuador, no problem. You don't have to have anything special or do anything in advance that I can remember. I don't think we filled out any kind of thing for there. You just go through passport security once you get there, and that's it. You do need a special visa for the Galapagos specifically, and Adventures by Disney does give that to you.
So the next day you're flying to Baltra. Was that a private, or did they have you on a public airplane?
Commercial.
It's a public commercial airplane, and they had told us before that there might be a gas stop. So it might be one leg stop for gas and then another leg. And we actually ended up getting a nonstop, which I was surprised because I was telling my friend that I was meeting for the first time sitting beside me, I was like, they're going to be stopping for gas. That's what they told us. So we didn't. We arrived there. So that was kind of fun. But yeah, it was a flight that they booked everyone on. You didn't know where you were going to be seated on the plane also. So you didn't know if you'd be window, middle, or aisle. But I think in hindsight, I probably would have called and said, hey, is there any way can I put a note to have aisle? I don't know if you can do that, but I would prefer aisle. So yeah, we're on a flight with a whole bunch of people going to the island, and it was really cool.
How long was that flight?
Less than 2 hours or so, somewhere around 2 hours. It was not that bad.
Well, you get to Baltra, and it sounds like they take you to the ship right away?
Yes. So once you get to the airport, you go through the visa process for the Galapagos. They scan your luggage. They also have you answer a questionnaire, like, are you bringing any camping equipment, like tents or anything like that? Because they obviously don't want people doing things that they're not allowed to do. Then we went outside. We collected our bags. Basically, they brought them straight to this bus area. They gave us a ticket for the bus, and then we got on the bus and handed our ticket to the driver of the bus. Then the bus took us to this not very long drive, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, to this little area where you get on, like, I guess a boat dock, but a very small private kind of situation. And then there you drop your luggage, you put on life vests. So anytime you went on one of these Zodiac boats, which is kind of like a blow up boat with a hard bottom, right? Which is the boat of the day. Every day you're on the Zodiacs going to and from the land. We basically had to put on our life vests and have nothing in our hands and no bags. So they would, if you had like a carry-on, like a backpack, like I have a backpack with a camera and camera equipment, I'm not going to check that bag. I also want to have that on my body, right? So I have camera stuff. So you'd get there, you put on your life vest, you put your check bag to the side, they'd bring that on another separate boat. Then you'd have your carry-on, you'd hand your carry-on, and then they'd either put all the carry-ons on before or after everybody got on. So everybody got on, then they put the carry-ons on and you got your carry-on, you held it by your feet on the boat ride. And then once you got there, all the carry-ons came off first, and then everybody safely came off and went on the ship.
Did you have a way, did they give you a way to attach your phone to you? Were you separated from your phone during that process?
Not gonna lie, I had my phone in my hand and I didn't know I wasn't supposed to. And so when I was getting on for the first time, one of the naturalists, which is like the park ranger that's with you the whole time, right, was like, you're not supposed to have your phone in your hand. I'm like, oh, sorry, I didn't know, because I didn't at the time. Nobody had told me. They might have told other groups, but I did not hear that message. I had it in my hand. For future trips on the Zodiac, I made sure to have a pocket or a waterproof cell phone case, a little crossbody, a belt bag, a fanny pack, things like that. If you had a small thing and it was underneath your life vest, you're okay. And that is actually something they provide. So once you get to your room and you're checked in on the ship, they have a few little things in the room for you, including this crossbody that has a little blue fitted booby feet embroidered on it, which is adorable. Like a little, yeah, it was just so cute. I'm like, oh, blue fitted booby. I love those birds. And then a water bottle. So that crossbody was perfect to put underneath your life vest, and you could wear it like that. And then while the Zodiac is moving, you're allowed to take out your phone and take pictures. You're allowed to get out your camera and take pictures. It's just getting on and off. They need it to be as seamless as possible. Because one thing you're dealing with there, a small ship, lots of waves, right? The water would go up and down constantly. So when you're getting off on the Zodiac and you're going onto this ladder, you're holding the arms of the naturalist and the boat driver, the Zodiac driver, and then the people up top, and you're holding on the ladder. And sometimes you were moving like 6 feet. So you
Wow.
had to wait for a lot of the time it was calm, 1 foot. Okay. But there would be some points where I'm like, well, that's the whole ladder up there. Okay. I got to wait, for the right time when we're up high and then go. So yeah, it's a little bit of a challenge in moments, but most of the time it's just fun.
How many people were on the adventure?
Gosh.
The ship has a capacity of 100 people. Just gonna put that
Okay.
out there.
Perfect. There you go. I would say each room, there were a few people that traveled solo. I do know at least of 2 people that were on the trip solo in their own room, but most of the rooms had 2 people, like a mom and their child and the dad and the child, or spouses.
How many guides did you have?
So Adventures by Disney had 3 employees, but then the guides that would be with you, the naturalists, they're like the park rangers. They're called naturalists, 1 per Zodiac. And each Zodiac would be anywhere from 10 to 14 people on it. I think there were something like maybe 6, 7 different groups. I could be wrong in that. But 6 or 7 times 10 to 14, somewhere in that range. So I could be wrong, but each group was named a different animal in the Galapagos. So we were the albatross. They were also the boobies, the cormorants. Let's see, iguanas.
And then you stayed with your group for the whole week?
Yep, exactly. So anytime you did a planned landing that wasn't like a separate thing, like if you were going kayaking, that's different because not everybody does kayaking. Only a few people do that. And that's free and included in everything. You just have to sign up. But yeah, for a majority of the time when you're doing hiking, snorkeling, that kind of thing, you're usually going to be with your group. If you're going into a city tour, you're doing one of the giant tortoise preserves, you're with your group. Not necessarily at the table, though. So when you're sitting to eat, that's a different story. So a lot of people traveled in families of 4. That was pretty common, or maybe 6. They might have the 4 and then the grandparents. That was a lot of our friends on the ship. But then there were also a lot of couples. So like, for instance, us at dinner time, we were sat with a whole bunch of couples and 1 solo traveler. That was our dinner table.
Was it assigned?
Yes, it was assigned.
Let's stick with the ship here for a little bit. So you are by no means new to adventure cruising or cruising in general, but for our listeners, these adventure cruises, as I already mentioned, the ship only holds 100 people. This is the Galapagos Legend, it looks like. What were your overall thoughts on the ship? And then what kind of stateroom did you book and how did that work for you?
So there were a handful of different levels of stateroom. And the most common one is kind of where we were at. So there's the bottom of the ship, which has the 2 portholes. And then 1 level up, there's one with big picture windows. They're kind of like a horizontal shaped window, maybe like 4 or 5 feet by 3 feet or so, like kind of that shape. So we had 2 of those windows in our room, same setup as the rooms below, but just with bigger windows. So when my husband and I were looking at this, we're like, cheap as possible. We're like, what's the cheapest thing? And the person, with Adventures by Disney was like, well, if you really want to be able to see things, you should get the room with the bigger windows 1 level up. It is more expensive, but you're saving money from the promo that was going on at the time. So anyway, we were in that setup. So how that works is you walk into the room, there's a closet right on the right. And then to the left is the sink, shower, toilet combo. And then there's a bench with some drawers below it. There's kind of like a little nightstand attached to that bench, which had drawers there. And then there's the 2 twin beds, which are separate, and then a little nightstand in between with some charger cords. This is not the same as a DCL cruise ship. What I mean by that is if you bring a checked bag, I brought a waterproof duffel bag from the North Face because I'm like, I am not risking anything getting wet. My husband's like, I'll bring a check bag. So his check bag did not fit underneath the bed. Mine did. So space-wise, this is a significantly smaller room than probably most DCLs, period. And then if you compare it to an interior room of other cruise ships, like I do Norwegian Cruise Line a lot, it would be comparable. Although I would still say that the Norwegian interior might be a little bit larger. It just depends. It's a different kind of setup completely compared to people who are used to normal cruising. The key emphasis here is like adventure, right? This is for people who like to hike a lot, swim a lot, be extremely active, and love wildlife. And it's not about the room necessarily, it's about the experience. So our room was, this great room with these big windows, and I loved it. But then, there was another level, I think, with that. And then there were a few rooms with balconies. And I mean few, there's just a handful at the top, and that's it.
So this ship, as any cruise, is your moving hotel for the next 8 nights here. What was kind of the ship experience like? How was dining on board, and what activities did they have planned for you in the evenings where you weren't on the islands?
So dining, you had two options. There was, I'm pretty sure it was called the Lonely George restaurant, which was the interior restaurant. That was one deck below, like on the bottom deck where the porthole rooms are and where you get in and out on the Zodiacs. It's at that same level. So that restaurant is primarily where we ate. And then a few times, very few, we'd go up top. It all was like kind of dependent on weather, choppiness. There were a few days where it was really choppy and you felt it. So they're not going to put people upstairs on the outside deck when we're really rocking, and they're going to keep you kind of lower to the water. So those were the two dining experiences, up top and then down below. Down below would be mostly a buffet style. And then they change the type of food that you'd have per night. So 2 different times or 2 different meals. And again, you'd go on for here, these restaurants for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There's only, let's see, 1 or 2 times where we were on land doing something where we had a meal, a lunch on land. Otherwise, you were eating on the ship what they had. So they mix it up for you, not for breakfast. Breakfast was pretty much very similar every day. You know, you'd have a ton of fresh fruit. There's an omelet kind of station, really good crispy bacon. I was all about. I'm like, oh, this is great. You know, you get good bacon. You're like, okay. And then let's see, for lunch, the same with dinner, they'd mix up what you had. So it'd be a buffet. One day they might have like tacos. The other day they had Ecuadorian food. Another time they might have seafood, that kind of thing. And then dinner, sometimes it would be the open buffet and sometimes you'd pre-order your meal at lunch. So if there was a pre-order, what they do is that your server would come around with the menu, show you your options. You'd have a few appetizer options, a soup option if you want it or not, a few entree options, and a few dessert options. Then you just pre-order and kind of tell them what they want, what you want. Like some nights there'd be fish, some nights there was duck, things like that. And so you'd order then. And then besides that, even at dinner when they had the pre-order, they would have a little tiny kind of, they call it like the kid buffet, where it might be like slices of pizza, chicken nuggets, and French fries, just so there's something else. One night in the kid buffet, they had spaghetti. And that night I was just not feeling the options. And I had the spaghetti and it was awesome. It was cool when we ate up top, though. I will say the views were beautiful. There's a whole bunch of tables and chairs. And then 2 of the sides have they're permanently attached, like life preserving type boats, and that are part of the restaurant. So that was kind of neat because we got to sit in that once or twice, which I like.
Were all your beverages included?
So everything soft drink wise and like a smoothie, coffee, things like that. And I will say I am a big fan of bottled Coke, and they had bottled Coke, Fanta, things like that. So I love that. That was all included. Alcohol is not included, but it is offered. So if you wanted to have a bottle of wine at dinner, you could ask for it. They're not bringing the menu out for that, but there are also bars on board that you could order from. You could get the Cokes at the bar and things like that. But yeah, so not all drinks. Alcohol was not included. And they did not have endless options. Like you could get Coke or Diet Coke. You couldn't get Dr. Pepper or Pepsi. You know, there's a few different things. That's kind of the setup for the drink thing. I will also say, separate from drinks, a few things to note about the ship's layout that I thought were interesting, that I just feel like I should mention. The ship does have an exterior area to lay out near that bar. There's an outside bar and an inside bar. They had a mini small pool. Most of the time it was kids playing in it. It was not very large, but for the size of the ship. And then there's another lower deck that had 2 hot tubs at the end of the ship. And then there was a gym with like treadmill, bike, and some yoga mats and things like that inside of it. So it did have some things like that. I was curious if we would have like workout equipment on board. I'm training for Run Disney. I'm training for the London Marathon. So I was really hoping that there would be a treadmill on board. And it's funny because we were so active and so busy. I had no energy to run the entire trip. We were snorkeling or hiking all day, every day. So I thought that was neat. One more thing to note too, that I wasn't sure about being a travel blogger, that I was curious about, that I think people would be interested in, is that there was unlimited Wi-Fi for free on board. So a lot of cruise line ships, you have to pay. Obviously, most cruise lines, you have to pay for Wi-Fi. This was something that was included. Although service, questionable at times. Sometimes it did not work. Sometimes it did. You were always able to pretty much text. But then let me give an example for a travel blogger that wants to upload a reel. it would take like an hour and a half for me to upload that reel. So each of those day by day reels that I posted while I was on the ship took a very long time, and I had to make sure my cell phone screen didn't go to sleep. But I did love that they had unlimited Wi-Fi, because I told my family, I'm like, I don't know if you're going to hear from me for the next week. I have no idea what the internet situation is. It wasn't talked about. So when I got on the ship and I found out I'd have Wi-Fi, that was great. And then I also, side note, I have AT&T. When you were on some of the islands that were inhabited, that had a town, I could connect to the tower there. And Ecuador is, with AT&T, is a country you don't have to pay extra for. It's included.
Oh.
So yeah, certain countries in Latin, South America, Central America are included with AT&T. I also get the international day pass when I travel to other countries like Europe, which is $10 or so. Maybe it's 12 now a day. But that was kind of nice. So I didn't have to pay for Wi-Fi, and I didn't have to pay for any international cell phone plans with AT&T, which I liked.
Love that. Well, why don't we start to get into some of these excursions here? And it sounds like they have you hit the ground running, because on your embarkation day, you are already stopping at an island to do some hiking and snorkeling.
Exactly. Yeah. So your very first day, you get on the ship. You have a late lunch. Flight didn't get in till later. And then we did not do snorkeling that day, but we did, because it was a lot later. Our flight got in late and it was delayed and so on and so on. But we did go hiking, and it was absolutely beautiful. Where we went that day, let me just see. It was North Seymour Island. That was the location. And as soon as you got off the Zodiac, which you did kind of a dry landing on rocks, so you had to climb up, kind of scramble up the rocks a little bit, which is not that difficult, but it could be challenging for some, of course, because of the steep nature of the rocks and them being wet also. But the second I got up there, there's an iguana right there. And then it was really neat because we saw a rare iguana right there, also this orange-bellied one, which our guide had told me you only see a few of these every 20 years. So that was special right away. We saw a whole bunch of different birds. We saw baby sea lions. That first island was absolutely beautiful. I also got my first taste of needing bug spray. It's nature. You're in it and you're walking through it. So you definitely have to make sure you're covered with sunscreen and bug spray every single day. Coral safe sunscreen, of course. But yeah, so that was a neat experience. We got to walk around. Our naturalist, we got to get to know him. And I will say, y'all, I feel so fortunate because we got the best naturalist. I think hands down, I'm biased, obviously, but his name was Juan Carlos. And I would hire him again and again and again and again if I could. If I had my own company that operated in the Galapagos, I would purposely go out and try to find him. He was so patient, so kind. We had a group of mix, really. We had children, we had adults around my age, we had parents of those adults. So it was a good group mix for our Zodiac, our albatross group. And Juan Carlos was kind, patient, answered questions, never made you feel any way like you were a bother by asking too many. So he was wonderful. And getting to know him that very first day and seeing how he interacted and how passionate he was really just got you that much more excited. So after we did our thing, we got back on the ship, had our first dinner, and that was that.
All right. Well, that takes you into day 2, where you have 2 different island stops.
Yeah, Bartholomew, how you say it? I'm trying to remember. It's Bartholomew Island. So that was incredible. Wow. And we go hiking right away, which I love. So we take the Zodiac out. We go on a little trip around the island looking for penguins. And y'all, I am so grateful because that day we saw a Galapagos penguin right off the bat. And it was, I'm going to say not shedding, losing its feathers. It was
Molting?
Yes, molting. There you go. I was like, what is the word I'm looking for? Anyway, it was a baby that was molting. And it was so cool. And that was one of only like 3 I saw on the entire trip. So getting to see a Galapagos penguin right away was like, oh my God, I don't think this could get better. I saw the rare orange-bellied iguana yesterday and all these birds and things. And now I'm seeing a Galapagos penguin, and there's only 800 in the world. And I got to see one right away. So yeah, I felt like, wow. And then on top of that, there were baby sea lions again, tons of crabs. And then we did our landing. We went for this gorgeous, gorgeous hike up top where we got to see the bay, which was really neat. And then we got back on the ship for lunch. Let's see, we went snorkeling also on that beach. Yeah, after we went snorkeling on that beach, then we went back on the ship for lunch. And then the afternoon we spent on Sullivan Bay on Santiago Island, excuse me. And there we went snorkeling and also kind of went a walk around the island too.
You mentioned your husband is a certified diver. Did he have an opportunity to dive on this trip?
Not on the Adventures by Disney trip. So that was something he was really curious about because he definitely did want to go. And the Galapagos has an incredible marine life situation. I mean, they have whale sharks, they have hammerheads, a whole bunch of different types of sharks, white tip, Galapagos, you name it, they have it. So he really did want to go scuba diving. But we had found out before that is not something they have, but he still brought his prescription goggles and his dive watch just in case that let's say we were on the island where, there's a town and we had a few hours, like, could he contract, no, you cannot. So he still brought it, but no, it was just snorkeling the entire time.
And did ABD provide the ship provide the snorkel equipment?
Yes. So that is something I actually brought my own snorkel with me because I wasn't certain. And they did. The ship has fins and a snorkel and mask for everybody. The very first day you get fitted for that.
Could you use your own if you had them?
Absolutely. You're more than welcome to use your own. Yep. But I will say it was nice. The setup they had was nice. They had a dipping station, a whole room where they were hung up on racks and you had a bag that had your number. Like I was A15. So I'd always go and look for the orange A15. And then if I needed to dip it, I could. And then on the boats, they also had a soap where you could clean out the goggles and everything like that.
What did you think overall of the snorkeling then? I know it might not be as cool for your husband as diving, but it sounds like an amazing place to snorkel at least.
It was incredible. I would definitely rate it up there on unique places for snorkeling. Lots of different fish. We saw the white tip shark and Galapagos shark while we were snorkeling. Also a lot of different types of starfish, which was really neat. I also saw moray eel. Some people saw an octopus, but I did not ever get to see the octopus there. I've seen octopus in other places, but I never saw one on this trip, but several people did. Spotted eagle rays. I again did not see them, but some people did see one or two periodically. So I'd say the snorkeling is definitely up there. There's a few places in the world that I think, I've really enjoyed. The Galapagos, Thailand, and Bora Bora. Bora Bora by far has the best snorkeling in the world, in my opinion. From everywhere I've been, that's been my favorite place. So kind of hard because, I'm like, it was quite incredible, but I've seen a lot of things in other places. And so I would say if you do enjoy snorkeling, it is a must go to location, if I can put it like that. The Galapagos is incredible.
So moving on, it looks like your next 2 days you are spending in the same island. What did you get up to on those days?
We actually didn't. We went to different islands every day. So the next day, on Wednesday, we started off the morning on Punta Pit. There we went and on a hike, which was quite incredible. It kind of looked like a scene out of Jurassic Park, like your shirt. It was, you pulled up and I'm like, I know it's Disney and this is Universal, right? But I'm like, thinking that in my head, like, wow, this location is incredible. So when we pull up on the Zodiac, there's a wet landing. We went for a hike. We saw, of course, like a lot of neat things like lava lizards, stuff like that. And then we also saw 2 nesting blue-footed boobies on the ground. And it was incredible up close. But you're also required, by the law of the Galapagos to stay 6 feet or more apart. You have to give the animals respect, which I think is something they constantly push. Excuse me, sea lions, there's no seals in the Galapagos. The sea lions, they're constantly moving. So you have to respect that and move with it and back up and get further apart. And you're not supposed to stay between like them in the water or them in their nest or things like that. So you're having to watch from a respectful distance. But that location was quite incredible. And then on the hike, we also kind of went to this edge where we saw some frigate birds, some males that were puffing out with a red neck, which was incredible seeing their dance, like trying to attract the ladies. I loved watching that. And then off in the distance, we could see people that didn't want to do the hike, that had an alternative option, which they always had this, which I liked. They could go on a Zodiac ride around the island. And I could see a Zodiac, y'all. And they were behind dozens of dolphins. And the dolphins were jumping out of the water. And I was just watching this from a distance. And I thought, gosh, to be on that Zodiac right now and watch that up close, that was incredible. So after that was snorkeling. And then we decided to go kayaking actually instead. So we kayaked. That was quite difficult, I will say. The waves were pretty hardcore. And after hiking, kayaking right after, thank God you're, kayaking with your arms and not your legs, because I was exhausted and then I got exhausted again. And this is all after breakfast before lunch. It was just so much fun. But we got to see a little island and then we saw a whole bunch of baby sea lions and they would come so close to the kayak because they're curious. they pop their head out of water and they're just watching you. So it's like this magical experience for just a few of us in the kayaks. I felt like, gosh, again, it can't get better, right? It just couldn't get better. So then later on the day, we got back on the ship, had lunch, and then in that afternoon, we went to Cerro Brujo, which was an absolutely incredible beach. We could go snorkeling. So that was that day. And then you mentioned the second day after that. So let's say that was Thursday. What we did on that day was like a whole day out. So we did the island of San Cristobal. And on that day, we saw a giant tortoise facility where they protect them. It's a giant property, like where it really feels like they're roaming free, but it is protected. And they have to do this to help the species grow back, right? They have certain areas, certain bins for certain ages. And then, of course, the adults after age 6 are allowed to roam free and do whatever they want, basically. But it was neat to see because there's an area like kind of like an incubator, but not. It's open with kind of a cage top where they're protected. These baby giant tortoises would stay in there from 1 to 2. And then from 2 to 6, they had a separate area that was open to the elements and more natural, no cage-like feel. And then they'd be put into the wild, essentially. The reason why they do this is because as babies, they will become food for so many different things. They can get injured by cats, rats, things like that, bugs. So they protect them at that age to help rebuild the population. And then after that, they're kind of put into different situations that help prepare them for the wild. So it's kind of neat to see. Then we had lunch on that island at a farm, lots of natural fruit. We learned about a lot of the flora around. We were able to pick a banana from trees there. And I have to tell y'all, it was the best tasting banana I have ever had in my life. I cannot explain how sweet it was, but I have never tasted a banana like this. And it was just right off the tree. I ate it, natural. So it was cool. We had lunch there. The kids had an opportunity to play soccer, which was kind of neat to watch. And then after that, we kind of walked around the city a little bit. One thing that was really neat is that Adventures by Disney gives everybody on certain vacations $5. And then you're supposed to buy one item with that. And then we save it for a white elephant the last day. So that day, my husband and I are searching for a white elephant gift in town with like literally everybody else. He ends up getting a bracelet that has a giant tortoise on it that was made from a really unique seed that had hardened into a rock. So that was a really cool thing. And then what I got was a bookmark, but like a piece of art that was a feather. And a giant tortoise was painted on that. But you did see a lot of magnets. You saw a lot of patches, Christmas ornaments, and some plushies when we did White Elephant later. It was kind of fun. I ended up getting a shot glass, actually, which we deemed a juice glass to be family friendly. But then I got that stolen. I got chocolate, had that stolen. I ended up with a keychain, I think. But anyway, that was fun. So we bought our White Elephant gifts that day and then went back on the ship.
I love how Disney comes up with these unique little things to get people excited. We had a similar go buy a Christmas present or a holiday present on my Rhine River cruise to the Christmas markets over Christmas. And it was great. And we, were there on Christmas and everybody had a gift to give to somebody else. And I just like, who thinks of that? It's just amazing. I love Disney for that.
And it also is great because it's supporting the local economy,
right?
And on top of that, we all bought other stuff. We're helping give back. And I like that too. Disney is helping push that in so many different ways. Like, let's support the economy here. I like that. It's a special moment for us. We get a special gift in it. We're also helping out these local businesses, which I love.
Well, let's keep going because we are 5 days in on this trip and we still have 4 more to go. So day 6, it looks like you were in Espanola.
Yeah, day 6 was Friday and we went to Espanola Island that day. We took a Zodiac ride to a beautiful beach where we saw a whole bunch of baby sea lions napping. We also went deep water snorkeling, saw fish, including a few small baby white-tip sharks. So that was cool. That was the first day I got to see the white-tip sharks, which is basically, this beautiful shark. And the back fin has, the tail has white kind of going down it vertically. So they're really beautiful to see. Then we saw, of course, lots of baby sea lions. Let's see, we went on a 1.65 mile hike around the island. That hike was quite incredible because we saw a whole bunch of iguanas. And I also got to see 2 male territorial iguanas. So that was kind of fascinating to get to watch them fighting. Allegedly, they would kind of touch And then they kind of just did this head bob thing and then whoever lost like head bobbed and walked backwards. So it was fascinating to get to watch. We also saw, I believe that day we saw red-footed boobies. And then on that island specifically, we saw something unique that I had not seen before. I've seen shipwrecks. I've snorkeled shipwrecks and things like that. But on that island, unfortunately, a week before, almost exactly, there was another company that had a ship similar to ours, but a brand new one, like only 1 year old, and it crashed. So yeah, we saw that right there from our ship. We could see it, and we were walking kind of right by it. Of course, we don't go up close. Like that's not, smart. It's dangerous, but it was kind of sad to see for sure. I didn't take away from the experience, but it was sad and it was something to note. And, getting to see something like that. But anyway, yeah, back to the island. It was really beautiful. I saw more iguanas on that island than I think anywhere else. And one thing to note too is that, you got off on the beach at one point for snorkeling, but then later on the day we went on this hike, you got off on a dry landing, but it was kind of like a wet dry landing. So there's like waves crashing onto rocks. And there's like a little bit of a sidewalk kind of situation that you're kind of stepping onto. You might be in the water, you might not. So at the beginning of the day, I was able to be dry. The end of the day, I had to take off my hiking boots and kind of hop on. But what was really cool about that spot is that it was so shallow. And for some reason, that was like a calm spot for a whole bunch of super playful baby sea lions. And it was perfectly clear water. So you could see everything. And they're swimming up to the boat, checking it out. Like the Zodiacs, they're playing with each other, like rolling around in the waters. And it was so magical. I'm like, gosh, every single day, there was something that stood out. I'm like, that was magical. That was magical. This can't get better. This can't get better. And then it kept going. So that was probably my highlight of that day. I really liked it.
I got to take my kid on this trip, Lake. He would love it so much.
So would I. When you mentioned deep water snorkeling, what was like the approximate depth of that? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah. So it kind of varied and it was dependent on the water and like each location because there were a few deep water snorkelings offered. And you didn't have to do this. There's no requirement. A lot of the time when you didn't want to do that, they'd either offer you a Zodiac ride or they had a glass bottom boat. So it was a boat with a glass area in the middle, not the whole boat glass, but an area in the middle that was long and vertical where you could see what was underneath. So there were alternative options for those that were not able to do that or that weren't kind of feeling good about their swimming skills, because that was definitely something they always asked about, which I did appreciate. When it was deep water, they would say if the waters would be calm, etc., or they'd say this is a very challenging deep water snorkel. They also always provide you with a life vest that you can puff up as much as you like. So it's not the same life vest you wear when you get on the Zodiac. So the Zodiac is a vest that you typically see here in the States when you're getting on like a jet ski. That kind is the Zodiac life vest. When you're snorkeling, it's a flat, bright yellow one that there's a wrap that goes around your body and it can kind of go behind your head and on your chest. So if anything were to happen, your head is permanently above the water. It's not like this kind where you can roll around in the water. So anyway, they always offer that. And then the depth of the water, right? So some places it was very deep. I would say like where I couldn't really see the bottom. I mean, I could, but maybe it was quite far. And there were other places that say like on average, probably 20 to 30 feet, but some areas again, quite further down. So you really do need to be, if you're doing the deep water snorkels, in my opinion, an expert swimmer because the water is moving fast. And there's some areas where there's a current. One of the last days we went snorkeling, the current was so strong. We have a pool, I swim, and I felt like I got to get out of this. It was so challenging. So the depths varied, but it was quite deep and there's nothing to hang on to but yourself, right? So you have to be kind of expert swimmer on those locations.
How did you get in and out of the water? Were you guys launching, like going snorkeling off of the Zodiacs?
Yep. So the Zodiac would go out. You have your regular Zodiac vest. You take off your Zodiac vest. You put it in a bag. Then you put your snorkel gear on. You put your fins on, your life vest if you so choose. And then you kind of swing your legs over the side and plop in. Then to get out of it, right? Like how do you do that in deep waters? They have a metal ladder that they would bring for the deep water dives and they'd attach it on. It's quite high. I mean, you're having to put your foot like where your chest is in the water. And that's like the first, step. And the boat's rocking and stuff. So you'd put like your fins on first. You take your fins off one at a time, not to drop them, further into the depths. You'd hand a fin up, hand the other fin up. I'd hand my snorkel up or not. And then you'd walk up the ladder and sit and then you'd also have to constantly be thinking about evenly weighing or trying to the Zodiac.
Right.
It's a blow up boat with a hard bottom. You've got to make sure that the weight is evenly distributed at all times. And so you're having to kind of play with that a little bit as people are kind of constantly getting on. But it was really easy, honestly. The in and out part, it was fun. I liked kind of popping off into the side and then what am I going to look at below? I don't know.
Well, let's move on to your next day. Looks like this is Floriana.
Yes, Floriana was beautiful, y'all. It was such a neat experience. And this was so special for me. So a little bit about my history. I love postcards. I am like an old school person when it comes to sending cards and postcards. My website is called Postcards from Main Street. I love postcards. So this was Post Office Bay Day, and I was so excited. Y'all have to hear about how this works, right? So in Ecuador, there are no post offices, period. There are no stamps. Some places sell postcards, but you can't send them somewhere unless if you were to go to UPS and send it that way, and it would be quite costly. What's unique about this location that's so cool, right? Adventures by Disney and the ship give you 2 postcards. If I would have known this, I would have bought a few, I think, and the locations where I did see them, and you did not see them often. But they give you 2 postcards, and I was like, oh my gosh, who am I going to send these to? I have to choose. I had one friend that asked, so he got one. And then I had to choose who the second one is. So they'll find out later, and it will be a surprise. I'm not going to give it away. But I have a whole list of like 150 people I randomly send postcards to when we travel. So I'm like, they'll get it hopefully one day. But again, there's no stamps. So how this day worked is the night before you were given the postcards in your room along with like a Pello chocolate every night. You could fill it out. So I filled it out that morning. I went on the Zodiac. We did our Zodiac ride, and then we had a wet landing with snorkeling and the post office bay. You'd walk a little bit to the post office, which is literally a barrel. It's a barrel, and every postcard inside is in a Ziploc bag. And there's multiple Ziploc bags with stacks and stacks and stacks of postcards. So what do, right? You have to address your postcard, and you have to put, like Houston, Texas, United States. And the idea of this is with these postcards with no stamps is that you go and you search for people that live near you. So like, is there anybody in Houston? And the idea is to hopefully try to hand deliver the postcard to that person. So I was able to find a few that seemed accessible to us. There's one in League City, which is in the Houston area. So I was like, I'll have a day at some point I can drive down there. It might not be this week, but I'm going to try to drive down there at some point and hand deliver this postcard, knock on their door. And if they don't answer, I'll just leave a note with it and say, your postcard made it home from the Galapagos. Here you go. And put a little story attached to it if I can't talk to them directly. And then another one that we took is for Bangalore, India. So my husband travels there for work sometimes, and he has a whole bunch of coworkers in Bangalore. And just coincidentally, he met with one of the coworkers yesterday after we flew home. And that coworker agreed is going to hand deliver the postcard.
That's amazing.
To India. Yeah. I'm like, this is what it's about, like the whole world coming together and doing something cool and good and everything. So just getting to participate in this and search through the postcards was so special. And my heart was like, oh, I love this. And we're all connected and the world's not as big as we think, So special moments for sure. But other than that, that day was just great. We went snorkeling on the beach. Some kids played soccer. We learned a little bit more, about the area and the different islands and how many islands there were and all that. So yeah, Floriana was beautiful, but it was definitely a special place in my heart.
Which that experience is the other pillar thing, whatever, that is special to ABD, that they're coming up with what would be a unique experience that our guests can do on this trip. You're not snorkeling at that moment. You're not seeing wildlife, but you're doing something local. Like we had a listener on who talked about the farm they went to in Australia. And it's like that type of stuff. You weren't planning to do this, or you wouldn't have picked this to do on your own, but it ended up being one of the most special moments of the trip. I love that.
For me, definitely. Like I said, I love sending mail. I love postcards. I love snail mail. I have friends that live overseas that I've met for my travels, and I send them holiday cards, and I send them, they're on my postcard list. So they periodically get a postcard from, Jordan or Qatar or whatever. I'm like, I just choose my friends and I want to make their day. So I send them one. And so it was really special to get to experience that. It's definitely something that they talk about, and you learn about it in one of the Darwin museums that you visit on the trip. But it's neat. It was a neat experience that's totally unique to the Galapagos that you can only experience there. And I'm really grateful we had that opportunity.
Lake, I think we need a postcard list. We need to start this. We need to have postcard lists. We need to
Send
get
you
our listeners
postcards.
to do it too. Yes, please send me a postcard. Send my son a postcard.
Oh, you're getting a postcard.
Oh, he would love it so much. We go to the mail almost every day together because it's like a little 5-minute walk and it's our thing. And he very rarely gets mail, but always looks. Yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I'm going to start sending him a mail.
Please do.
All right. Well, turning it back, we have one more, I'm going to say full day with excursions before your trip sadly turns towards the end. And it looks like you were back at Santa Cruz for this.
Yes. So we're back at Santa Cruz Island, and this day was absolutely incredible. And again, with those feelings that you have, right? Of like, oh, I don't know how this can get better. I don't know how this can get better. I don't know how this can get better. And it got better, y'all. It got better every day. And I couldn't believe it. This day, the biggest highlight was visiting more giant tortoises and seeing them on this giant property just out in the wild. And I saw the biggest giant tortoise I have ever seen in my life there. And we got to take a picture with it, respectfully behind at a distance. But it was so cool. It was so neat to see them just like walking around. Also, on our way to that giant tortoise center, we saw giant tortoises walking down the road, like in the wild. And people are like asking questions like, oh my gosh, like, could they get hit or whatever? And it is a fine and you go to jail if you hit them. So people are very serious about protecting the giant tortoises, which is important. It's just the same as protecting the blue-footed boobies or the red-footed boobies or, the lava lizards or whatever. They're all part of this society, like this place working together to like have this natural experience. And so they want to protect these animals. So it was really cool to get to see them just like we're driving by, giant tortoise by a tree, giant tortoise on the road, giant tortoise in a garden, giant tortoise by a banana tree. It was just incredible. I couldn't believe it. So that day was really neat. We got to have some snacks at a facility there. We visited the Charles Darwin Research Center, where we basically just kind of like walked around there. We didn't get to go see like actual research being done because obviously that's private, but we got to see the statue. We got to see where a lot of it is done. So that was kind of neat. But yeah, the giant tortoises, that was the highlight for sure. Seeing them up close again. There were 2 big days that you got to see that. That first day where they're kind of at that protected nature center. And this one was more of a wild experience, like seeing these 100-year-old giant tortoises. And you're like, wow, it just puts things into perspective and like it reminds you again why you're on a trip like this, like, and why we want to do everything we can to protect nature. It's a nice last day.
That's like an amazing last day. Anything else for this day?
Not necessarily this day, there were certain days I know you had previously asked, but certain days and nights on the trip, we'd have like special experiences that Disney set up. Like some nights there'd be like ice cream social. One night there was bingo. And I believe this night, I could be wrong, but I'm trying to remember. I think we did trivia. And that was so much fun and very competitive. The first round of it, I know, and the kids really got into it. I loved it and they were doing well. We ended up pairing with the family that we got along with so well. And they're just the greatest. And so we were in a group of 6. We played. The first round was on geography and our group won. So I was so exciting. There was another round on sports. There was another round on Disney trivia. So that was really neat. And then besides all this, also, every single day, they'd have a unique way to give you your pin, right? So this day specifically, we also visited a school where it's for children who have special needs. And it was really neat to see how it was ran. So people in the community would come and volunteer and teach valuable skills like art or this or that can help and just help. It was kind of like a community feel. It wasn't a parent raising a child alone. It was the community coming together to raise the children. And I love that. And so at that center, they had art that you could buy. And then, of course, the pin of the day, they put hidden kind of on the table with the art. So when you're looking at it, you were surprised to see it there. So yeah, Disney had constant little ways to make things special and make you feel like you're learning about not just the animals, the wildlife, but the community as well.
This just all sounds so amazing. Well, before we get off the ship, I do have just a couple questions I want to ask you. First off, of all of these amazing experiences and excursions, what was like your favorite day or favorite excursion?
That is so hard because all of it was incredible. I will say, gosh, the last day walking with the giant tortoises was just incredible. And also the very first day. I will say I'm a big penguin fan. I have a penguin tattoo. So seeing the Galapagos penguin for me was very special. I'd like to see all the different types of penguin before I die. So getting to see those only that day, I think was probably the most special day for me. It was the first full day of the trip. So it was magical in that sense. You saw iguanas, you saw fish, you saw the penguins. And then when we hiked, another cool thing about that day is that it had started raining just a teeny bit, right? And it only rains like 2 days a year where this island is. It happened to rain when we were there. And then once we got up to the top, there was a full rainbow. And the picture in my head, I posted a picture, but it does not do it justice, y'all. There's mountains and water and blue and lagoons and things like that. And this giant full rainbow. And it felt like Neverland. It just felt like in this moment, like there's no place in the world like this. So I think that specific moment has got to be my favorite. Just standing there and seeing this full rainbow and thinking like, gosh, this place is untouched, or essentially not fully, because obviously we're hiking there, but it's just this so natural place that there's only so many of these like this. And I felt very fortunate and lucky to get experience. So I think that specific moment was just like, wow, gratitude. It meant a lot.
Sounds just truly amazing. My other question is, we kind of call cruising like a taste of. You get a taste of this island, a taste of that island. But this is a little bit different. This is first off, Adventures by Disney. You are getting a highly curated experience. And in this case, what they're curating is, the story of the Galapagos. So did you feel like with all of the bouncing around between islands, you really got like the full feeling of the Galapagos, or did it still feel like that cruising, like this was a taste of what the Galapagos has to offer?
It's 100% different from cruising. I hear you completely. Every time I go on a cruise, we've been on cruise ships around the world. I do them in Asia, Europe, you name it. I love it. Right. And I hear you. It is, you get a taste of that place, that city, that country. And then, okay, I'd like to go back there and spend more time there. Right. With this, you are fully immersed every day, all day, sun up to sundown, you are busy seeing and doing and learning. So I really, truly felt like I got such an immersive experience to where, like, when you're on a cruise ship, you might want to go back to. I would love the opportunity to go back, but I also feel complete. I feel like I saw so much, and I'm so grateful for everything I got to see. I learned a lot. We did not see every island, of course. You're only allowed to go to certain places, but I feel like complete. I feel like, wow, that was incredible. And I can close the chapter or open it again one day if we can afford to go.
Well, I think the last one I have for you, and this one is probably a home run question for you, but a lot of different companies you can go through to do this. Just like any excursion or any, river cruise is not the only skin in the game there. But ABD is typically pretty expensive, pretty pricey. Do you feel like you got the value for what you paid out of this?
I think so, because the location is remote. Getting there is expensive regardless. I know in my traveler mindset, right? There are certain places in the world that are going to be pricey. Price costs a lot, right? Antarctica, the Arctic, the Galapagos, a safari. Those kind of things are a higher price point. And when you're going with Adventures by Disney in general, it is a higher price point. But there's a lot that comes with it that you don't even realize. Sun up to sundown, everything is perfectly curated for you. You don't have to lift a finger in planning, which as somebody that normally lifts all the fingers and does all the work for fun and for a living and plans people's vacations, it was nice myself to get to go on this vacation, have everything taken care of and not have to worry one bit. And I think that's one thing that Adventures by Disney really does. This being my first experience with them is having that kind of trust in a company that I know and already love to take care of me. There's something to say in that. Certain places you go to and you might be nervous, or you can't backpack the Galapagos. You might be able to go and stay on this island and then take a ferry to another island, but it's just kind of, dependent. But you can't go to most of these places unless if you're on one of these expedition ships. It was incredible. I just really enjoyed Adventures by Disney. Obviously, you can go with other companies. If I didn't go with Adventures by Disney, I would 100% go with Nat Geo. And I think maybe if I ever could go again, I think I would go with Nat Geo just to have variety and see what I would see and learn and the differences. But yeah, they just make it an incredible experience. I mean, I can't say enough good things about them. I'm talking to all the people on the ship too, learning about their prior experiences with different Adventures by Disney trips on boats and on land were all incredible. And that's why they kept going back and back and back with this company. Yes, the price point is higher, but the Galapagos is a higher price point kind of place. When you consider it like, is it luxury? No, but is it extremely remote and hard to get to, and you have to do the things to get there? Yes. So it definitely costs a bit, but I 100% think it was worth it. I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and I would recommend it to a lot of people. If you're active and you like wildlife, like science, like you said, you do, it's definitely the place for you.
I mean, you definitely have me sold on it. Any notes on traveling home? I know you basically end where you begin and they fly you back to Quattro. Did you do any post-night stays or anything like that? Or was it straight home and then into your seat to record this episode?
Pretty much. So you have the option to do post-night hotel or not. And we decided not to because we had already had 2 nights before we had seen the city that day. So how the day went is that you woke up and in the morning they separated you into larger groups than your zodiac, like 2 or 3 zodiacs together. And then you did your white elephant. And we got to do ours on the pool deck. And it was so fun to get to see what people had. Then we ate breakfast. And then they gave us a box lunch. We went to the airport and we flew. And again, it was the same kind of situation. It was either nonstop or a flight with a gas stop. We got a nonstop again, which was great. I got an aisle seat. So I was, excited. And then I got to the airport. And another thing they recommend is not getting a flight too early because, you don't know exactly what time you're going to get there. I think we had landed around 4 p.m. So a 6 p.m. flight would not have done well. The flight to Houston is an overnight flight. It's at 12:30 in the morning. So there were several options for us. We could either stay another night at the hotel, but then we'd still have the same problem. We'd have a 12:30 a.m. flight the next night, right? Some people would pay for a night at the hotel directly and just hang out in the hotel all day. They also had airport lounges, but you're only allowed to check your check-in bag, like your checked bag, 3 hours in advance. So like even if you wanted to go to a lounge inside, you couldn't because if it was more than 3 hours. So across the street from the airport, there's actually like a little mall and it's free. There's like a KFC, a Baskin Robbins, a pizza joint, things like that. And you could sit and hang out there for hours. Then below that, there is a lounge that you can pay for. It's $40 a person. It's like an all day lounge. Like I think you're allowed like so many hours there, like 18 hours or something max. They had recliners, a few snacks, not many. But a great thing about that is I have priority pass lounge access. So it was free for me and my husband. So that was nice. So we got to hang out there. Also still went upstairs and got a Baskin Robbins mint chocolate chip shake because why not, right? And then I went and flew home. So yeah, my flight was at 12:30. I landed in Houston before 6 a.m. and hit the ground running, picked up the dogs, started laundry and was busy, helping clients book vacations. It was like back to work, another normal day.
Well, sounds like just an absolutely once in a lifetime type of trip. But then that definitely leads me to my last question for you. What is next for you?
Next, gosh. Okay. So a lot, but that's Run Disney for you. So I have the springtime surprise races that are coming up. So I'll be flying for that. And I'm ending my perfect season, which is really a personal accomplishment. Last year I did a perfect Walt Disney World season. This year I'm doing a dual park perfect season. So I've got Disneyland and Walt Disney World. 157.5 miles. Thank you. It's a lot. I'm ready to take a nap. And by nap, I mean not run for like 4 weeks. But no, I'm just kidding. I can't because right after that, I have the London Marathon, which I'm doing for a charity called MAX, which is a charity that focuses on those who are born without eyes or that have eye health issues and raises money to help them. So I'm really excited to be raising money for them. And then this summer, the big thing, like big trip for my husband and I, we're going to Africa. And we're doing a safari. We're flying in and out of Cape Town. So South Africa, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Uganda, and Rwanda. And that's going to be all about wildlife photography and just having fun and living in the moment. I'm so excited. I'm hoping to see gorillas. We're going gorilla trekking. But it's obviously nothing's guaranteed. I've flown to India for, tigers. Didn't see the tigers. They're very rare. I'm never thinking like anything's a guarantee, but I'm really hoping that we see them. So yeah, that's our big other trip. This year's kind of a crazy trip year for us. The Galapagos and the safari, these are kind of wild things, literally. But I'm very, very, very grateful for these opportunities. I'm really excited for them. Do you guys have any trips you're looking forward to this year?
Well, I'm going to Norway for the Norwegian fjords, and we're definitely looking forward to that. So that'll be a good trip for my family and I. And then I always seem to have multiple cruises booked. So in general, out of Florida. So I have those ahead as well.
That's exciting. I love cruising and Norway's beautiful. You're going to have a great time.
We're so excited.
Well, much like you, my running calendar is very full. I will also be at Springtime Surprise to run the challenge. And then a few months after that, I'm running Grandma's Marathon, plus many other races that will pop up in between, and so much Run Disney if you know me at all. But then our big trip in the fall is the British Isles DCL sailing, which we are so excited for because there are so many people that we know, so many listeners and Patreon members from the show on it. So it's really shaping up to be a really, really fun trip.
Okay, I have to ask when and where, and is there still space?
Well, Lindsey, thank you so much again for coming on and sharing your ABD Galapagos experience. Where can our listeners follow you?
Well, I'm on Instagram. My Instagram handle is LindseyHenry0711. I'm also on Facebook. I'm on basically all forms of social media. I'm also a travel agent. My website's postcardsfrommainstreet.com because I love postcards. But yeah, most of my content I put on Instagram. I love shooting reels. My background is broadcasting and my degree is in broadcasting. So I love video editing. So that's primarily where I put stuff. I love Instagram. It's fun. And I love being on it and saying hi to everybody.
Yeah, her reels from this trip are incredible. I definitely would tell our listeners to go check those out.
Oh, thank you so much.
Love it. Well, Christy, where can our listeners follow you?
I am all over the internet. Pack your pixie dust.
And you can follow myself at MouseGen on Instagram and YouTube. And you can follow us at DCL Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening. And we will see you next time on the DCL Podcast. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Well, that's going to wrap up the show. Once again, we want to thank Lindsey for coming on and sharing her adventures with ABD in the Galapagos. If you're enjoying the show, we greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We'd also like to thank our Patreons who help make the show happen each and every week for us. You too can help support the show by visiting us at patreon.com/DCL Podcast. Whether you're boarding a cruise, enjoying a trip to the parks, or adventuring outside of Disney, on behalf of myself, Christy, and Steve, we want to wish you smooth sailings and safe travels. We'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.